We have, as Mr. Jazinski had said, rules number 38, a resolution congratulating Dylan Devine for becoming a Section 2 wrestling championship. Anyone would like to make any comment? May I have a motion?
So moved.
Mr. Hughes, may I have a second? Second, thank you, Mr. Como. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The resolution has been moved. Resolution number 39, a resolution congratulating Zayona Perez Tucker on her Section 2 group championship win. May I have a motion? Motion, Mr. Hess. Seconded by Mr. Como. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The resolution, hearing none, the resolution has been moved. Our next resolution, resolution number 40, a resolution calling for a public hearing on proposed law A of 2022. This is the continuation of our mortgage recording tax that we have here, and we're calling for a public hearing on June 22nd, I believe.
So moved.
So moved, Mr. Hughes. May I have a second? Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the resolution for the public hearing has been moved. Resolution number 4-1, a resolution to amend the capital improvement program for providing additional funding for the county's new time and attendance system. And we want to
Sure, we
Sure.
can both talk
Laura?
about it. Go ahead, Laura. Yeah.
We're asking for additional funding to support the time and attendance initiative that the county started over 2 years ago. We're in need of additional time clocks to complete this project.
Our initial assessments were we were trying to maybe scrimp and save a little bit, maybe not have a time clock in every library. People coming at the same time on these clocks. We've about 50% of the way through of our rollout for countywide, and we're anticipating by year end, hopefully, to be fully time and attendance through Chronos systems. So the ask is for the additional time clocks. Just as we were rolling this out, we realized that we probably truly assessed how many we actually need.
Move to report.
move to report. Mr. Hughes, may I have a second? Second, thank you very much. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the resolution has been moved. Thank you very much. Oh, you have the other piece. Oh, yes. Our next item is resolution number 42, a resolution confirming the appointments of persons to the Schenectady County Environmental Advisory Board Council and the Soil and Water District. We have 3 appointments there, replacing those that are moved on to other positions or other forms of life. Yes, Ms.
Mr. Chair, if I could just make a comment, I'd like to just take a moment to thank and congratulate both Noah and Portia, who's here with us today. Both of them are here for becoming the newest members of SCIAC. Taking good care of our planet is of critical importance. This is a completely voluntary role, and I want to thank them for their generosity of both their time and expertise. Sometimes recommending environmentally sound policy can start right here in our very own community, and I'm so excited to be working with them, and I just want to thank them for their time. And secondly, I'd also like to thank my colleague Legislator Hess for his interest and willingness to work together on the Soil and Water Conservation District Board, working together as good stewards of our natural environment. So very much looking forward to that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other comments?
Move to report.
Move to report. Mr. Hughes, second. Thank you very much, Sally Mae. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the resolution has been moved. Our next item is resolution number 43. A resolution regarding a multi-year agreement with Fortinet for computer software that provides antivirus protection. And here Laura's again.
IT is requesting the 3-year agreement to replace our current antivirus with an endpoint detection and response program that's more advanced than what we have right now.
Move to report.
Move to report. Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the resolution has been moved. Thank you very much, Laura. Our final resolution this evening is resolution number 4 to amend the 2022 capital improvement program to provide funding for infrastructure repairs at the Schenectady County Correctional Facility.
So this is an extension of earlier in the year, we had come to legislature to ask for authorization to replace the generator at our jail. It's 30 years old. It's something truly, in years past, we should have probably done a better job planning for the timing when we were going to do it. But it came to its end of life. It was, becoming emergent that we replace this generator. So we came here, asked you good folks for authorization to purchase a generator. We're moving forward on that. Part of the generator installation are the conduits that go from the actual physical generator itself to go into the jail. We did some testing of these conduits and come to find out there is water in these conduits. So it kind of evolved on Thursday and Friday, and then even evolved again today. It's of highest priority that we quickly fix these conduits. It's a lot of electricity running through water, which is bad. Actually, this morning I signed emergency declaration orders to authorize the electric to be started. So under the powers under state law and purchasing law, I took that step this morning. So really, we're just here to have it just reauthorized by the county legislature to be able to fix these conduits. They got to get in there. They got to dig down. They got to pour cement. They got to create the tubes that will go from the actual generator itself inside the jail, and then some switching needs to be updated. So we're asking for that approval.
Water and electricity are not compatible. Move to report.
Oh, we've heard a first and second. I just want to ask a quick question. When was
Yes,
the
sir.
last time something like this was ever done for that facility?
So, in the 2023 budget, countywide, I'm certainly going to be asking for increased attention to our facilities, whether it's roofs, generators, HVACs. But the jail specifically has some updated needs for sure. Whether it's a roof or the generator system that we're talking about now. I mean, this generator is 30 years old. I mean, these are expected lives of these things. The third year here sitting in the manager's seat, it's not only just the jail, but countywide. We have a good, robust 5-year capital plan, but we've got to be better at just making sure we're costing these things out at 10, 20, 30 years. Because certainly, any person can understand that a large $500,000 generator needs to be replaced every 30 years. Hopefully I answered that question.
Thank you. No, you did. Thank
I already
you.
made the motion, and there might even be a second, but
We did get a first and second. Go ahead.
we really are looking out a little bit on a number of these things, because I think your assessment is correct that in the past, we may not always have been as comprehensive in our view of what is really getting out of date and replaced.
Yes. Yeah.
I was hopeful that we might see some of that in our capital plan.
Working on it currently, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Hearing that we had a motion on the table, it was first and seconded already. Thank you very much for the discussion that came afterwards. May I have a all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the resolution has been moved. And with that, Mr. Chair, the committee has now come to a close.
Thank you, Legislator Fields. It's now time to open privilege of the floor. Members of the public are asked to come to the podium. Give us your name and address for the record, and try to keep your comments to 3 minutes. Anyone wishing to comment during privilege of the floor? Anyone wishing to comment during privilege of the floor? Anyone wishing to comment during privilege of the floor? Seeing none, privilege of the floor is closed. And I'll call to order the June regular meeting of the county legislature. Will the clerk please take the roll?
Mr. Fields.
Present.
Mr. Russo. Ms. Pratt.
Present.
Mr. McGill.
Present.
Constantine.
Here.
Scotta.
Here.
Mr. Frisoni is absent. Mr. Cuomo.
Here.
Mr. Paterni.
Present.
Sosfeld.
Here.
Mr. Hess. Mr. McGarry. Here. Mr. Hughes.
Present.
Mr. McDonald is absent. Mr. Jazinski.
Present.
13 present, 2 absent.
Thank you. Members received copies of the minutes from the meeting held on May 10th. Is there a motion to adopt?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Any opposed? Minutes are hereby adopted. Clerk will read the list of reports received.
We received reports from the county manager, the commissioner of finance, Department of Weights and Measures, and the county clerk.
Thank you. Committee reports. Legislator Hughes, read reports from the Committee on Economic Development and Planning.
Mr. Chairman, the Committee on Economic Development and Planning met on June 6th and reported to the agenda resolutions 83, 84, 85, and 86.
Thank you, sir. Legislator Osterlich with reports from the Committee on Health, Housing, and Human Services.
Mr. Chair, the Committee on Health, Housing, and Human Services met on June 6, 2022, and reported to the agenda resolution 87.
Thank you. And also the Committee on Labor and Civil Service.
Mr. Chair, the Committee on Labor and Civil Service met on June 6, 2022, and reported to the agenda resolutions 88, 98, and 90.
Thank you. Legislator Paternity reports from the Committee on Public Facilities, Transportation, and Infrastructure.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. The Committee on Public Facilities, Transportation, and Infrastructure met on June 6th, 2022, and reported to the agenda resolution 91.
Thank you. Legislator Constantine with reports from the Committee on Public Safety and Firefighting.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Committee on Public Safety and Firefighting met on June 6th, 2022, and it reported to the agenda resolution 92.
Thank you. Legislator Fields reports from the Committee on Rules.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The Committee on Rules met earlier this evening and reported to the agenda resolutions 77, 78, 79, 80, 81, 82, and 95.
Thank you, sir. Also the Committee on Ways and Means.
And indeed, the Committee on Ways and Means met on June 6, 2022, and reported to the agenda resolutions 83, 86, 87, 88, 89, 90, 92, 93, and 94.
Thank you, sir. For two ceremonial resolutions on the agenda this evening, the resolutions 77 and 78. I'll open the floor for discussion on these resolutions. Any discussion? Seeing none, clerk will read the roll call on ceremonial resolutions 77 and 78. Members may note any resolution on which they wish to be recorded in the negative.
Mr. Fields.
Aye.
Mr. Russo. Ms. Pratt.
Aye.
Mr. McGill. Mr. Constantine.
Yes.
Gata.
Yes.
Mr. Frisoni is absent. Mr. Cuomo.
Yes.
Mr. Paterni.
Aye.
Ms. Osterlich. Mr. Hess. Mr. McGarry.
Yes.
Mr. Hughes. Mr. McDonald is absent. Mr. Jazinski.
Aye.
13 aye, 2 absent.
Thank you. The resolutions are passed. This time I'd like to recognize Legislator Fields.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to introduce proposed local law A of 2022, which has been included in the members' packets this evening. Proposed local law A provides the extension of the current mortgage recording tax pursuant to state law. Our action this evening would be to schedule a public hearing on the proposed law to be held on Wednesday, June 22nd at 6 p.m.
Thank you. Next item is resolution 79-22. Sponsor is the Committee on Rules. The clerk will read.
Resolution calling a public hearing on proposed local law A of 2022.
Any discussion? Seeing no, the clerk please call the roll.
Mr. Fields.
Aye.
Mr. Russo. Ms. Pratt.
Aye.
Mr. McGill. Mr. Constantine.
Yes.
Ms. Gata.
Yes.
Mr. Frisoni is absent. Mr. Cuomo.
Yes.
Mr. Paterni.
Aye.
Ms. Osterlich.
Yes.
Mr. Hess. Mr. McGarry.
Yes.
Mr. Hughes.
Aye.
Mr. McDonald is absent. Mr. Jazinski.
Aye.
13 aye, 2 absent.
Thank you. The resolution is passed. I'll note for the record that the hearing will be held on Wednesday, June 22nd, 6 o'clock p.m. This chamber. I'll again recognize Legislator Fields for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. At this time, I move that proposed local law A of 2022 be laid on the table.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor indicate by saying aye. Those opposed, nay.
Aye.
Proposed local law is laid on the table. Our next item is resolution 80-22. Sponsor is the Committee on Rules. The clerk will read.
Resolution to amend the 2022 capital improvement program to provide additional funding for the county's new time and attendance system.
Any discussion? Seeing none, will the clerk please call the roll.
Mr. Fields.
Aye.
Mr. Russo. Ms. Pratt.
Aye.
Mr. McGill.
Aye.
Mr. Constantine.
Yes.
Gata.
Yes.
Mr. Frisoni is absent. Mr. Cuomo.
Yes.
Mr. Paterni.
Aye.
Ms. Osterlich.
Yes.
Mr. Hess.
Yes.
Mr. McGarry.
Yes.
Mr. Hughes.
Aye.
Mr. McDonald is absent. Mr. Jazinski.
Aye.
13 aye, 2 absent.
Thank you. The resolution is passed. Our next item is resolution 81-22. Sponsor is the Committee on Rules. The clerk will read.
Resolution confirming the appointment of persons to Schenectady County Environmental Advisory Council and the Soil and Water Conservation District.
Any discussion? Seeing none, will the clerk please call the roll.
Mr. Fields.
Aye.
Russo. Pratt,
Aye.
Mr. McGill,
Aye.
Constantine,
Yes.
Kata,
Yes.
Mr. Frisoni is absent. Mr. Cuomo,
Yes.
Mr. Paterno, Ms. Osowicz,
Yes.
Mr. Hess, Mr. McGarry,
Yes.
Mr. Hughes,
Aye.
Mr. McDonald is absent. Mr. Jazinski.
Aye.
13 aye, 2 absent.
Thank you. Resolution is passed. Our next item is Resolution 82-22. Sponsors the Committee on Rules. The clerk will read.
A resolution regarding a multi-year agreement with Fortinet for computer software that provides antivirus protection.
Any discussion? Seeing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Fields.
Aye.
Mr. Russo. Ms. Pratt.
Aye.
Mr. McGill.
Aye.
Mr. Constantine.
Yes.
Kata.
Yes.
Mr. Frisoni is absent. Mr. Cuomo.
Yes.
Mr. Paterno. Ms. Osowicz.
Yes.
Mr. Hess. Mr. McGarry.
Yes.
Mr. Hughes. McDonald is absent. Mr. Jazinski.
Aye.
13 aye, 2 absent.
Thank you. The resolution is passed. Our next item is Resolution 83-22. Sponsors Legislator Hughes. The clerk will read.
A resolution regarding the acceptance of monies from the Erie Canalway Heritage Fund, Inc. for rest areas along the Mohawk Hudson Bike Trail.
Any discussion? Legislator Hughes.
We're happy to have received this grant for improvements on our bike trail. This would create 2 rest areas, one in the vicinity of the community college and another out toward Rotterdam Junction. There would be locations where users of the trail could fill their water bottles and also be connected to information from Discover Schenectady regarding other activities and attractions. It's just another in a series of steps that we're happy to be able to participate in to improve the quality of our bike trail, which I would argue is probably one of the best bike trails anywhere in New York State. While I'm standing, I'll flip ahead to 86-22 and indicate that that's for some paving on our bike trails. So further improvement out there in this significant piece of quality of life.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Seeing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Fields.
Aye.
Mr. Russo.
Aye.
Mr. McGill.
Aye.
Mr. Constantine.
Yes.
Kata.
Yes.
Mr. Frisoni is absent. Mr. Cuomo.
Yes.
Mr. Paterno. Ms. Osowicz.
Yes.
Mr. Hess. Mr. McGarry.
Yes.
Mr. Hughes.
Aye.
McDonald is absent. Mr. Jazinski.
Aye.
13 aye, 2 absent.
Thank you. The resolution is passed. Our next item is Resolution 84-22. Sponsors Legislator Hughes. The clerk will read.
A resolution regarding the notification of owners or developers of qualifying alternative energy systems of the imposition of a payment in lieu of taxes agreement.
Any discussion? Legislator Hughes.
This we also discussed in committee, but for those who may not have had an opportunity to see our committee meeting, this is a means of trying to streamline and systematize a process in which developers of solar sites are given a period of time in which to notify the county. And what we're doing here is kind of changing that process up so that once the application comes in, they have the clock starts on a 45-day period. So we anticipate that this is going to kind of tidy up the process of maybe they got a hold of the manager, maybe they got a hold of the commissioner of planning, just to kind of systematize what we're doing here to treat everybody fairly, both the landowners and also solar developers. So I would recommend we approve it.
Thank you, sir. Any further discussion? Seeing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Fields. Aye. Mr. Russo. Aye. Ms. Pratt.
Aye.
McGill.
Aye.
Constantine.
Yes.
Kata.
Yes.
Mr. Frisoni is absent. Mr. Cuomo.
Yes.
Mr. Paterno. Ms. Osowicz.
Yes.
Mr. Hess. Mr. McGarry.
Yes.
Mr. Hughes. Mr. McDonald is absent. Mr. Jazinski.
Aye.
13 aye, 2 absent.
Thank you. The resolution is passed. At this time, I would like to recognize Legislator Hughes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And at this time, I would like to introduce proposed local law B of 2022, which has been included in the members' packets this evening. Proposed local law B pertains to the sale of 2 parcels at the county airport. Collectively, they contain 2.68 acres and 3.46 acres of land for a total of 6.14 acres. The purchase price is $100,000 per acre, or $614,000, which comes to Schenectady County for the sale of land that is currently not on the tax rolls and not in use. And that would amount to the largest amount we have been able to secure in the sale of unused property at the airport business park. This sale would build upon the success we have already had developing the county's airport business park in Glenville. And that includes the $20 million Naval Reserve Center, new facility for DSM, which formerly, you may remember, was known as Fortitech, now a growing international company in the nutrient and nutrition business. New facility for Superpower, another growing international company. A new facility for Bruno Associates. That company builds machine tools on site and ships them across the world. And a new hangar for Riva, the largest air ambulance company in North America, and also a new facility for C2 Design Group. So our business park is expanding very nicely. Action this evening would be to schedule a public hearing on the proposed law. That would be held on Tuesday, July 5th at 7 p.m. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, sir. Our next item is Resolution 85-22, sponsors Legislator Hughes. The clerk will read.
A resolution calling a public hearing on proposed local law B of 2022.
Any discussion? Now will the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Fields.
Aye.
Russo. Ms. Pratt.
Aye.
Mr. McGill. Mr. Constantine.
Yes.
Ms. Scata.
Yes.
Mr. Frisoni is absent. Mr. Cuomo.
Yes.
Mr. Paterni. Ms. Ostolich.
Yes.
Mr. Hess. Mr. McGarry.
Yes.
Mr. Hughes.
Aye.
McDonald is absent. Mr. Jazinski.
Aye.
13 aye, 2 absent.
Thank you. The resolution is passed. I'll note for the record again that this hearing will be held on Tuesday, July 5th at 7 p.m. in this chamber. I'll again recognize Legislator Hughes for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. At this point, I would move that proposed local law B of 2022, which we just discussed, be laid on the table.
Thank you, sir. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor indicate by saying aye. Those opposed, nay.
Aye.
The proposed local law is laid on the table. The next item is Resolution 86-22, sponsors Legislator Hughes. The clerk will read.
A resolution authorizing the implementation and funding in the first instance 100% of the federal aid and state Marchiselli program aid eligible costs of a transportation federal aid project and appropriating funds therefore.
Any discussion? See now will the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Fields.
Aye.
Mr. Russo. Ms. Pratt.
Aye.
Mr. McGill. Mr. Constantine.
Yes.
Scata.
Yes.
Mr. Frisoni is absent. Mr. Cuomo.
Yes.
Mr. Paterni. Ms. Ostolich.
Yes.
Mr. Hess. Mr. McGarry.
Yes.
Mr. Hughes.
Aye.
McDonald is absent. Mr. Jazinski.
Aye.
13 aye, 2 absent.
Thank you. The resolution is passed. Our next item is Resolution 87-22, sponsors Legislator Osterlich. The clerk will read.
A resolution regarding the acceptance of monies from the New York State Office of Temporary and Disability Assistance for sheltering and housing of homeless persons.
Any discussion? Seeing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Fields.
Aye.
Caruso. Ms. Pratt.
Aye.
Mr. McGill. Mr. Constantine.
Yes.
Scata.
Yes.
Mr. Frisoni is absent. Mr. Cuomo.
Yes.
Mr. Paterni. Ms. Ostolich.
Yes.
Mr. Hess. Mr. McGarry.
Yes.
Mr. Hughes. Mr. McDonald is absent. Mr. Jazinski.
Aye.
13 aye, 2 absent.
Thank you. The resolution is passed. Our next item is Resolution 88-22, sponsors Legislator Frisoni. The clerk will read.
A resolution creating and eliminating certain positions at the Department of Social Services.
Any discussion? Seeing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Fields.
Aye.
Mr. Russo. Ms. Pratt.
Aye.
Mr. McGill. Mr. Constantine.
Yes.
Scata.
Yes.
Mr. Frisoni is absent. Mr. Cuomo.
Yes.
Mr. Paterni. Ms. Ostolich.
Yes.
Mr. Hess. Mr. McGarry.
Yes.
Mr. Hughes. Mr. McDonald is absent. Mr. Jazinski.
Aye.
13 aye, 2 absent.
Thank you. The resolution is passed. Our next item is Resolution 89-22, sponsors Legislator Frisoni. The clerk will read.
A resolution to create and eliminate certain positions in the Department of Information Services.
Any discussion? Seeing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Fields.
Aye.
Mr. Russo. Ms. Pratt.
Aye.
Mr. McGill. Mr. Constantine.
Yes.
Scata.
Yes.
Mr. Frisoni is absent. Mr. Cuomo.
Yes.
Mr. Paterni. Ms. Ostolich.
Yes.
Mr. Hess. Mr. McGarry.
Yes.
Mr. Hughes. Mr. McDonald is absent. Mr. Jazinski.
Aye.
13 aye, 2 absent.
Thank you. The resolution is passed. Our next item is Resolution 90-22, sponsors Legislator Frisoni. The clerk will read.
A resolution creating and eliminating certain positions at the Department of Social Services.
Any discussion? Seeing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Fields.
Aye.
Mr. Russo. Ms. Pratt.
Aye.
Mr. McGill. Mr. Constantine.
Yes.
Scata.
Yes.
Mr. Frisoni is absent. Mr. Cuomo.
Yes.
Mr. Paterni. Ms. Ostolich.
Yes.
Mr. Hess. Mr. McGarry.
Yes.
Mr. Hughes. Mr. McDonald is absent. Mr. Jazinski.
Aye.
13 aye, 2 absent.
Thank you. The resolution is passed. Our next item is Resolution 91-22. Sponsors legislative attorney. The clerk will read.
Resolution authorizing the county manager to enter into an intermunicipal cooperative agreement with the East Glenville Fire District Number 3.
Any discussion? Seeing no, the clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. Fields.
Aye.
Mr. Russo. Ms. Pratt.
Aye.
McGill. Mr. Constantine.
Yes.
Scott.
Yes.
Mr. Frisoni is absent. Mr. Cuomo.
Yes.
Mr. Paterno. Ms. Osterlich.
yes,
Mr. Hess. Mr. McGarry.
Yes.
Mr. Hughes. Mr. McDonald is absent. Mr. Jazinski.
Aye.
13 aye, 2 absent.
Thank you. The resolution is passed. Our next item is Resolution 92-22. Sponsors legislator Constantine. The clerk will read.
A resolution to create a certain position at the office of the Schenectady County Sheriff.
Any discussion? Seeing no, the clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. Fields.
Aye.
Mr. Russo. Ms. Pratt.
Aye.
Mr. McGill. Mr. Constantine.
Yes.
Scott.
Yes.
Mr. Frisoni is absent. Mr. Cuomo.
Yes.
Mr. Paterno. Ms. Osterlich.
yes,
Mr. Hess. Mr. McGarry.
Yes.
Mr. Hughes. Mr. McDonald is absent. Mr. Jazinski.
Aye.
13 aye, 2 absent.
Thank you. The resolution is passed. Our next item is Resolution 93-22. Sponsors legislator Fields. The clerk will read.
A resolution regarding budgetary amendments to the Schenectady County Board of Elections operating budget.
Any discussion? Seeing no, the clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. Fields.
Aye.
Mr. Russo. Ms. Pratt.
Aye.
Mr. McGill. Mr. Constantine.
Yes.
Scott.
Yes.
Mr. Frisoni is absent. Mr. Cuomo.
Yes.
Mr. Paterno. Ms. Osterlich.
yes,
Mr. Hess. Mr. McGarry.
Yes.
Mr. Hughes. Mr. McDonald is absent. Mr. Jazinski.
Aye.
13 aye, 2 absent.
Thank you. The resolution is passed. The next item is Resolution 94-22. Sponsors legislator Fields. The clerk will read.
A resolution regarding a multi-year agreement with Westlaw for legal research computer services.
Any discussion? Seeing no, the clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. Fields.
Aye.
Mr. Russo. Ms. Pratt.
Aye.
Mr. McGill.
Aye.
Mr. Constantine.
Yes.
Scott.
Yes.
Mr. Frisoni is absent. Mr. Cuomo.
Yes.
Attorney. Ms. Osterlich.
yes,
Mr. Hess. Mr. McGarry.
Yes.
Mr. Hughes. Mr. McDonald is absent. Mr. Jazinski.
Aye.
13 aye, 2 absent.
Thank you. The resolution is passed. The next item is Resolution 95-22. Sponsors the Committee on Rules. The clerk will read.
A resolution to amend the 2022 capital improvement program to provide funding for infrastructure repairs at the Schenectady County Correctional Facility.
Any discussion? Seeing no, the clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. Fields.
Aye.
Mr. Russo. Ms. Pratt.
Aye.
McGill. Mr. Constantine.
Yes.
Scott.
Yes.
Mr. Frisoni is absent. Mr. Cuomo.
Yes.
Mr. Paterno. Ms. Osterlich.
yes,
Mr. Hess. Mr. McGarry.
Yes.
Mr. Hughes. Mr. McDonald is absent. Mr. Jazinski.
Aye.
13 aye, 2 absent.
Thank you. The resolution is passed. And prior to concluding this evening's meeting, I'd like to ask you all to join me in wishing our Director of Public Works well as he departs his county employment after many faithful years of service. I should say qualified, competent, dedicated service to our Schenectady County residents. Speech?
No, I won't give a speech. I just want to say thank you, and it's been a great opportunity. And I want to thank everybody for providing me with that opportunity, and I'll miss all the friends I've made over at Public Works. So thank you.
And your friends on the county legislature,
Well, I will,
especially.
especially my friends at the county legislature. But I may not be leaving that, so I still may be around for that.
And we're all, you're all invited to join us in the conference room for cake afterwards. Also, for the record, Legislator McGarry and Legislator Gatta joined us remotely this evening. So that concludes our business. Is there a motion to adjourn? Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Legislature stands adjourned. Thank you all.